Highlighting borders and perimeters can add depth to any landscape design. Let's take a look at some techniques that you can use. So Nate, we're now at the perimeter of a new site, and I noticed that you have several different layers of lights here at the edge of the perimeter. Can you tell me a little bit about what you've done?
So what we wanted to do, because we kind of had a challenge here with all these different layers of plantings and different shapes, sizes, all that, we wanted to make sure that we could kind of differentiate between each of them. So what we did is here in the foreground, we put in some FCs. And it's a great light in this application because this is the backyard where the kids play. And we wanted to make sure they don't trip or kick any of the lights over. Also allows the light to start early on and not cut off what you're trying to light up. And so it worked out really well with the FC1s here.
Yeah, I love how you use the end grades. End grades are my favorite, especially when you're going to see the fixture and you want the light so low to the ground. Okay, and that really helps because when you have a typical uplight, the light source actually doesn't start until, let's say, 8 to 10 inches above the ground. So when you really want to get light starting from the bottom, you have to start from that grade level. So that's why I love your choice of the FC. I also noticed that you have a glare shield on the side of it, which really helps. This is a perimeter light, which means the typical viewing point is very far away. We need to really cover up that glare from all directions, and I think you've done a great job with that.
Oh, thanks. So our next layer was some PB1s, and as you know, those give kind of a nice soft glow wash. So we were able to create a silhouette effect of these uniquely shaped square shrubs, and it gives a really nice effect, kind of mixes up that next layer.
Nice. And the third layer?
And then our third layer, we have these specimen trees. And so we used 2 MP3s on each of them. Okay. And that way we kind of had our most intense light on those trees, kind of make them the star of the show. Nice. And it worked out really nicely.
Great. Well, I've noticed that you have a more intense light on the trees, but less intensity on the other two. Can you tell me what effect that's creating?
Yeah, well, we wanted to make sure that we created a little interest to the eye and not have the same intensity across the whole board. And so having a nice soft wash, having something down low, and then having something intense that gets a little more elevated really kind of gave some variation and created some interest.
Yeah, and that interest and effect really came also from your fixture choices too, right? You have an end grade, you have a typical uplight or spotlight, as well as a wall wash. So I think all three are really working together.
Thank you.
So now we're in the back of the house, and this is the area that we like to call the meadow. And that's because we've planted 4 different kinds of grasses back here that move in the wind and have lots of different shapes and sizes. But along the back wall, we've planted 2 different kinds of shrubs that are for the butterflies and the hummingbirds. So altogether, again, we've got that whole meadow feel with lots of nature coming in. And back here, we decided to use the PB fixture. And what that does is it gives us a nice cast of light against the shrubs along the backside of the property. And I placed them based on the placement of the shrubs. So the shrubs are placed about every 4 feet apart. And so I picked the same placement for the PBs, so each of the shrubs will be lighted along the back of the property very evenly. On the other side of the shrubs, we have a short retaining wall with a fence above it, so you can see through that into the park beyond. But one of the nice things about the PB is when they're on at night, the wall of shrubs is lit up, giving us a sort of a visual boundary between us and the area beyond. And the good thing about this fixture is it's the dimmable. So what we use the dim for is, in this case, we start those plants quite small, and then we can have the power turned down to maybe 50%, and then as the plant grows, I just increase it so I can continue to light the plant all the way up. The other thing that's nice about this is our homeowner has several parties during the year, and during the regular day, maybe we only have it up a certain percentage, but when you have a party, you want more light. So we turn it all the way up for parties. So we have, on our programming, we have a party mode.
Well, great. This is the great look. I love how transparent it is through the back, right? So you have the barrier for the area itself, but then it goes on beyond, so it allows it to really open up and feel larger.
And the light fills that space. One of the last things to consider when you're picking out your light fixtures is the finish.
is.
And for me, my favorite finish for my wall washes and my uplights is the BZ, the bronze color. And that finish just appears so well into the plant material, so always my first choice.
Great, that's a nice use of these fixtures in this environment. Well, Mike, we're at looks like next to the driveway, alongside a very long perimeter wall. Tell me a little bit about the design process and where we're standing.
Well, conceptually, when you're thinking about this area being where the cars will arrive and people are coming into the home, we certainly have perimeter area here or a wall that we don't necessarily want to draw a lot of attention to, but we do want to show, highlight this wall in order to show the parameters of this area. In addition, there is lighting above, which gives depth and texture on some of the beautiful totems we have around here, and Palo Verdes also. So there's a lot of different things to consider in a situation like this, but I believe that the soft, general wall washing of the wall kind of shows you where that is without drawing too much attention to it, or it's kind of a subtle type lighting that gives you a great benefit without drawing too much attention to it.
Great. So with the fixtures, you used wall washes.
Yes.
They have a very wide spread as opposed
right.
to a typical spot, which has a narrow spread, right?
Right.
You talked about the intensity level because it's so wide, it tends to reduce the intensity a little bit.
That's right.
What does that do for the homeowner?
Well, I feel like, from my point of view, it gives me another advantage in giving them soft lighting, but I believe it gives texture and depth to the overall lighting. You see the light and not the fixture, so virtually you see the benefits of the light without having to see the fixture, which is a great asset in any lighting situation, and which is a principle which I try to adhere to.
Well, then that's a great principle. With another question about the distance between each of the fixtures.
Right.
If we have a very wide spread with a low intensity,
Right.
how far apart do you typically like to install these wall washes?
Well, we typically we go 12 to 15 feet, maybe, looking at it, depending on the height. And but most importantly, if you have to adjust it at night, I want it to be a nice, even flow of lighting.
Okay. Now, how are these controlled as opposed to other zones on the property? Are they zoned independently or on more of a same circuit?
They absolutely can be zoned independently, and I think it's beneficial to have these on a nightly basis to kind of for security purposes, and also some just soft lighting where you're not looking for the intensity of entertainment or other things like that.
Now, you mentioned this is a very low intensity wall. Because you don't want to distract from the focal point or other areas of the property. What does the lighting on the top of the wall do in that case? Are we still trying to be a more low intensity?
Well, yes, but you want to see the subjects that you're lighting. That's really dynamite to be able to see the totem poles and the beautiful texture of the different plantings there. In addition, we have downlights and some other aspects that just kind of give you the whole package as far as lighting is concerned.
Now, with all these different areas to light, do you put them at all the same intensity, or do they vary a little bit?
They vary. They can be adjustable, but typically, I'm not trying on a perimeter area like this. I'm not trying to highlight things with different intensity. I want it to be kind of more of a uniform type deal.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for showing me. This looks great, Mike. So John, we're now at the back of the property, well into the backyard, away from the pool, away from everything, and it looks like you've created a perimeter with the lighting here. Tell me about why you did that and how you did it.
We did. We used uplighting, and we used 9 LEDs.
Okay.
So with these uplights, we were trying to get light up in the canopy of the trees.
Now, what does putting light down here do for the homeowners up there?
Sure, we're expanding the living space. We're expanding the outdoors. We're trying to create a little depth for the customer.
So by depth, that probably helps them feel a little bit more safe, and maybe in terms of the property, does it make it feel bigger?
Absolutely, it makes your whole property feel larger. That's exactly right.
Now, there's obviously a lot of trees here.
There are.
How did you decide how many fixtures to use, what trees to light?
What we did was we stood up top from where the homeowners would be spending most of their time, and we looked out and we kind of picked and chose some of the trees that we thought would really look great during the night. And we picked a few, perfect trees, and then we worked off of that, spacing them out evenly off those key trees we wanted to focus on.
Interesting. And so in terms of the intensity, it's so far back, it doesn't look near as intense as that closer to the house?
That's right, and these are very tall trees. So to get light all the way to the top, It's not overpowering. It's a perfect setting.
Which is good because we don't want the focal point to be down here,
That's
right?
right.
We want it to be up closer to where they are.
That's right.
Lighting perimeters and borders on a property adds a sense of space, dimension, and comfort at night. Accent tall trees at the property edge to create the feel of an open yet defined boundary. Highlight shrubs, fences, and walls in smaller, more defined areas. Illuminating flowers, shrubs, and trees at different intensity levels can create a lot of visual interest along the boundary. Don't forget to add color to highlight these key areas. I hope you found these techniques useful. For more information, go to fxl.com.